Welcome to Movie Recall. In today's video, we'll be going through the 2005 horror and thriller film Happy Death Day to You. It's time to recall. Let's get started. Turn on subtitles and spoilers ahead. On September 19th, Ryan Fan wakes up in his car after a loud truck passes by. On his way to his dorm, Ryan comes across an old lady walking her dog. He even tries to pet it, but the furious dog barks at him. Terrified Ryan avoids it and proceeds walking. Then suddenly a homeless man appears from the bushes, making him shocked once more. Ryan finally reaches his room where his roommate Carter Davis is making out with Tree Gelbman, forcing him to leave. Ryan then visits the university's quantum mechanics lab to meet up with his friends Samar and Dre. At the lab, Samar and Dre inform him that their machine yielded high energy yesterday, September 18th. Delighted to see progress on their thesis, Ryan celebrates, but Samar worries about what kind of energy the machine emitted. As they discuss, Dean Bronson arrives and suspends the research due to a lack of results and constant power outages it's causing in the university. Troubled, Ryan lies on the couch and grabs his phone, but he's surprised to see a snapshot of himself sitting on the couch. He receives more photos as if someone's stalking him. Ryan examines the photographs and tracks down the camera's angle until it leads him into another lab. As he searches the room, Samar surprises him from behind. When Samar gets down to pick up the churro he dropped, a man wearing a baby face mask appears behind Ryan and stabs him in the stomach. Then Ryan wakes up inside his car and immediately feels that something is off, as he feels deja vu. As he walks, Ryan encounters the old lady with the dog who barks at him again. Confused, Ryan throws a stone into a bush where the homeless man appears and yells at him. He continues walking to his room and witnesses everything that happened before. When Ryan walks into his room, he tells Tree and Carter about what he's experiencing. Tree quickly recognizes this as Ryan being trapped in his death time loop since she's just escaped her own. The loop must have passed to him, so he will relive this day repeatedly until they figure out who his killer is. Tree then grabs a baseball bat and asks Ryan to bring her where he saw his killer. They head to the place where he first died but found no one there. Suddenly, Babyface appears behind Ryan and he strikes him with a mop. But instead of the assailant, it's only Samar who picked up the mask in the hallway. Tree wonders if Samar is the killer, but he was in front of Ryan when he first died. Dean Bronson appears again to talk about ending Ryan's science project. When Ryan shows Tree and Carter the reactor, she understands that Ryan is the one who accidentally created the time loop that keeps her reliving Monday the 18th. At the cafeteria, Tree tells Ryan that he has to stop the time loop or else he has to relive this day over and over again. Tree then freaks out when she sees Danielle, her sorority sister, who approaches her and asks her why she didn't attend the meeting. Tree then makes an excuse, to which Danielle insults everyone at the table and leaves. At the gymnasium, the trio tries to keep Ryan safe at a basketball game, but the game ends soon unexpectedly, forcing them to leave. When the students are heading out, Ryan notices Babyface staring at him and runs in a panic the opposite way, with Babyface close behind. Babyface grabs Ryan, but Tree hits him with a bat and knocks him out. When they remove his mask, they discover that the killer is none other than Ryan himself. A little while later, when Ryan's doppelganger wakes up, he's tied up and questioned. He tells them that he was trying to stop the loop. However, he landed into a parallel universe. He's here to assassinate Ryan from this timeline to prevent him from causing a worse catastrophic incident with the reactor. Confused, Ryan goes to ignite the reactor in an attempt to fix the timelines. However, Ryan's doppelganger convinces Tree and Carter to stop him, but Ryan is unstoppable. When he manages to free himself, the second Ryan goes to destroy the reactor, but it's too late as it causes a massive explosion that throws everyone back. The power then goes off. Suddenly, Tree wakes up in Carter's room. He tells her the same things he told her every time she woke up on her birthday. She hears her birthday ringtone and confirms that she is back to September 18th again. Enraged, she screams for Ryan and demands him to bring her back. However, Ryan doesn't even know her yet. Tree freaks out and shouts her frustrations into the pillow. Tree walks out of the room and demands Ryan to figure out what's going on. Tree walks out of the building while Carter and Ryan follow her. She screams at everyone as if she's gone insane. Tree walks to her room to look for her roommate Lori, the killer in her first death loop. She demands the poisoned cupcake that she believes Lori was preparing, but there is no cupcake. Instead, Lori greets her with a happy birthday before leaving for work. Tree then realizes that this day is different from her first time loop. While in the dining hall, Tree explains what happened to her before waking up in her room. Ryan hypothesizes that Tree is repeating the same day in a parallel reality. Then suddenly, Danielle walks in and Tree freaks out. As she makes up an excuse for not attending their meeting, Danielle approaches Carter and kisses him. Tree realizes with dread that Carter is dating Danielle in this timeline, who is not rotten like the Danielle she knows. She even sits with them, talking about their charity. Uneasy, Tree leaves the campus to eat lunch with her father David to celebrate her birthday. Before leaving, she whispers to Ryan to meet with her at his lab later. During their lunch, David greets her. When the waiter asks if they're ready to order, her dad refuses as they're still waiting for someone. From a distance, Tree sees her mother Julie, who died in her timeline. Tree is astounded upon seeing her mother alive. For the first time in years, she embraces Julie, and they spend their time celebrating both Tree and Julie's birthdays. That afternoon, Tree meddles into Ryan's lab and prevents him from closing the loop as she now wants to stay in this timeline. When Carter asks why she stopped Ryan, Tree confronts him for not telling her about his relationship with Danielle. He informs her that he thought she already knew that since they're housemates, to which Tree walks out. That night, Tree searches through her phone and discovers years of memories with her mother that she doesn't remember. Suddenly, Tree sees a news broadcast about John Toombs, a serial killer who tried to kill her in her timeline, being transported to the hospital. At the hospital, Tree grabs an axe and runs over to him. As Tree enters Toombs' room, she is apprehended by a cop and forced to drop the axe as he cuffs her. As the cop escorts her out, Babyface stabs the police to death. Tree runs away from Babyface, believing it's Lori. Then suddenly, Lori appears in the elevator behind her and takes Tree to safety. Lori leads her across a construction zone, but Babyface spots them and stabs Lori in the chest, killing her. He then chases Tree up the stairs but trips. Terrified, Tree proceeds to the rooftop. However, she falls off the building as she runs, looking at the back. Then Tree wakes up at the beginning of the day again in the same parallel dimension. She returns to the lab to explain everything to Ryan, Samar, and Dre so they can close both time loops. However, Ryan tells her that it would be a trial and error process since they have to remove variables to get the correct algorithm to close the loop. Samar also points out that they can't keep track of their progress since their knowledge gets reset every time. Carter suggests that Tree could be a living memory for them, and the rest of them suggests that she ends her own life rather than being chased by Babyface. Later that day, Tree starts to memorize the failed algorithms to extract them out the next time. Aside from memorizing heavily mathematical equations, she has to bear the pain she feels every time Carter and Danielle are together. Then, at the end of the day, she must think of ways to kill herself. For the following death days, Tree goes through a death montage where she electrocutes herself in the tub, swallows drain cleaner, leaps into a wood chipper, jumping to her death, and even skydives in her underwear with no parachute, purposefully landing in front of Carter and Danielle. However, when she wakes up again, the added trauma of her constant death takes its toll on her, and she collapses in Carter's arms before he takes her to the hospital. At the hospital, Dr. Gregory, who is having an affair with Lori, checks on Tree. When she realizes that Lori is about to die again, she tells Gregory to get Lori. Gregory denies knowing Lori at first, but when Tree tells him to ask his wife instead, Gregory decides to find her. She also rushes out and knocks the cop unconscious to steal his gun. However, Tree finds Lori dead on the floor. Suddenly, Babyface appears behind her, but she shoots him twice before he flees. She removes the mask and sees Toombs. Tree questions how he escaped, but the real Babyface comes and tries to take the rifle from Tree. She notices an oxygen tank nearby and shoots it, killing them. On another death day, Tree awakens with full determination to close the loop as soon as possible as she's getting weaker every time. Tree immediately heads into the lab and shows everything they've gathered. Ryan immediately proceeds to the computer, and finally they find the correct algorithm, making everyone celebrate. The time comes, and Ryan reminds her that she can't return to her dimension once the loop is closed. Tree looks at Carter and makes her final decision to stay in their dimension instead. When they're about to start the reactor, it doesn't work since the drive is invaded by a virus, so they have to wait 6 to 7 hours before they can try again. Frustrated, Tree walks out and Carter follows her. Worried, Carter confronts her about her decision, knowing that someone would die, and he thinks she is selfish. Tree snaps as she tells him that he has no idea what she has to deal with every day. She reveals that they are together in the other timeline, making it harder for her to choose between him and her mother. Carter then tells Tree that she is living someone else's life and that she should not remain stuck in the past. However, Tree leaves and goes to lunch with her parents again. Julie craves cinnamon that she and Tree tried last year on their birthday, but Tree doesn't remember this. This makes her realize what Carter meant. In a motel where they stop over, Tree receives a text from Ryan stating that the reactor is ready. While David is away, Tree asks Julie what she would do if she had never met David. Julie admits that she cannot fathom living without him and tells Tree that she would choose to be with David because he brought Tree to her life. Then, Tree sees on the TV that Toombs has escaped and killed Lori, the cop, and Carter, who rushed to stop the killer. Finally, Tree realizes she must prevent them from closing the loop, or Carter and Lori would remain dead. She grabs the car keys and hurries out, attempting but failing to reach Ryan as he and the others prepare the reactor. Tree then speeds towards an electricity facility, causing a wide blackout. Again, Tree is resurrected and returns to tell Ryan the algorithm, but this time she chooses to go back to her old timeline. As Ryan gets the reactor ready, Tree heads to her dorm to change clothes. She comes across Lori and expresses her happiness to see her. When Gregory comes to pick up Lori, Tree informs her that he's not worth it and sympathizes with Lori's feelings. She then goes to Danielle's room to apologize for thinking harshly of her, only to discover a guy emerging from her bathroom with nothing but a towel on, and Tree realizes that Danielle sucks in both realities. Later on, Tree goes to their birthday lunch, where she asks David to let her have a moment alone with Julie. Tree grabs Julie's hand and expresses how much she loves her and admires her as a mother. After a touching message, Tree embraces her mom. As Tree makes her birthday wishes, Trey stares at her mom and blows out the candles with her. Finally, Tree shares her gratitude towards Carter, Ryan, Dre, and Samar before returning to her timeline. Suddenly, Bronson and 2 security guards arrive unexpectedly to grab the reactor. Tree recruits Danielle to pretend to be a blind French student to distract Bronson and take his keys, and enter the office where the reactor is before returning it to the lab. That night, Tree goes to the hospital to save Lori while the team sets up the reactor. She enters the room armed with the cop's gun and kills Toombs before he can attack. Lori and Tree flee but are pursued by Babyface. Tree correctly deduces that the assassin is Gregory, who wishes to silence Lori for the affair. However, Stephanie, Gregory's wife, arrives to shoot Lori before they can go. She gives Gregory the gun to kill Tree, but he shoots Stephanie first, wanting to divorce her anyway. Gregory then chases Tree until they end up in the MRI room. As he draws his gun on her, Tree activates the magnet, and Gregory gets trapped in it by a metal wheelchair. Tree releases a screwdriver, which pierces Gregory's chest and kills him. Carter arrives and he and Tree assist Lori onto a stretcher. Tree expresses her regret for how things turned out and expresses her desire for things to be different, even though Lori is unsure what she means. Meanwhile, Ryan, Samar, and Dre have restarted the reactor, but Bronson and the guards are attempting to stop them once more. Samar and Dre keep them at bay for as long as they can until the reactor is turned on. Tree reminds Carter that they are together in the alternate timeline, and they share a kiss just before the reactor returns Tree, a fraction of a second before Bronson can pull the plug. Suddenly, everyone in the room awakens just after the blast. Tree turns to Carter and asks about Danielle, who he doesn't remember. Tree excitedly jumps on him as she realizes she has returned home. In the after-credits scene, Carter, Ryan, Samar, and Dre are required to do community service for using the reactor without permission. Suddenly, a couple of vans arrive, and a DARPA agent invites them to their headquarters. There, the agent shows the reactor and congratulates Ryan on his scientific achievement. DARPA wants to use it in an experiment, which means they'll need a human subject to trap in a time loop. Tree claims to have found the perfect recruit for it. Suddenly, Danielle wakes up and screams, caught in her own time loop. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe and click the bell icon to get new movie recaps.